back like we never left. It's Double Move Sports, and we're continuing our rookie breakdown series talking about the one and only Wan'Dale Robinson today. And it looks like, based off the reactions I got on Twitter, you can follow us at Double Move Sport. I put out a comparison between Wan'Dale Robinson and another player that we're certainly going to talk about and compare him to, in Elijah Moore, who everyone's so bullish on in Dynasty. But I was getting a lot of pushback in the DMs, in the mentions. Alex, why are you so bullish on Wan'Dale Robinson?
I'm bullish on Wan'Dale Robinson because he checks every single box to me other than size, right? So if you look at Wan'Dale's profile, he's only 21 years old. He broke out early. He gave us monster production at an SEC school at Kentucky last year, 104 receptions, 1,334 yards. So 39% target share. I mean, that's absolutely insane. His biggest red flag to me is that he decided to go to the University of Kentucky. I don't know why anyone would do that, as a Louisville Cardinal. But Wan'Dale checks every box. He got the draft capital as well. I think a little bit surprising with the draft capital early in the second round to the New York Giants. From an athleticism standpoint, he checks that box, 4.44 in the 40-yard dash. But the 5'8", 179 pounds is the knock everyone has on Wan'Dale Robinson. And I get it. You want your receiver to be bigger, but it just makes no sense to me why going into drafts last year and even now, people hate Wan'Dale, but they loved Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore is another guy we liked last year. But if you look at Elijah Moore, he checks the same exact boxes as Wan'Dale. Early second-round pick, played in the SEC, had a monster production season, early declare, a 4.4 40, 5'9", 178. So they are literally the exact same size, and they both get drafted to a New York team. And now with Elijah Moore, you have a guy with early first-round draft capital coming in to play the clear number one role. So these two guys have almost an identical profile. I know Elijah Moore did flash for us a little bit last season, which was great to see. It adds another check box on his side. But even in a rookie draft season last year, everyone's all over Elijah. And yet this year, I'm getting Wan'Dale Robinson in the third round. I just got him at the 308 in the league. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? So with Wan'Dale, I just don't understand why you would fade him just because of his size when we have seen other wide receivers have very, very successful careers, have very, very successful starts to their career in the past couple seasons, even with a smaller frame. So for Wan'Dale, I'll keep taking him early third, mid third, all day long, because I think even in a confusing, I think is the best way to put it, situation in New York, there still is a path for him to find his way to the top of that depth chart. You look at it, and Evan Ingram's gone at the tight end spot. You got Kenny G, Tony, Shepard, Slayton, and Wan'Dale. So 5 really receivers of consequence there. Sterling Shepard's coming off an Achilles close to age 30. Not worried about him, especially early in the season. So there's really 4 guys. Kadarius Toney might not be on the roster when the season starts. Then you got Kenny Galladay and Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton's a field stretcher at this point in his career. So Wan'Dale could find himself as that number 3 right off the bat and could work his way into production. Just like Elijah Moore last season, through the first several weeks of the season, did nothing, finally got onto the field and really flashed.
Great points on Wan'Dale. And I think third round, early third is where I have him in my rankings. I think that's a perfect spot to take him because what we're looking at here is very similar. I know we threw out Elijah Moore as one of the comparisons, but think about Rondale Moore as well. The issues with Rondale Moore, I think, are the reasons why Wan'Dale Robinson is falling in these drafts because people are disappointed, especially relative to where they took Rondale Moore. Some people were taking him back in the first, early second in rookie drafts last year. And it was one of those things where, look, the production was there, early declare, athleticism's great, draft capital's great, early second round for Rondale Moore, who's 5'7", 181, so another undersized player who's super fast. With these guys, the question always comes down to how are they going to be utilized by their teams in their offenses? That's where the risk for me with Wan'Dale Robinson is. Not necessarily the size, but how does New York view Wan'Dale Robinson? Do they view him as more of an auxiliary gadget player / stretch Z who can play more of that Darius Slayton role? Or do they see him as more of the Kadarius Toney replacement? They took Kadarius Toney 20th overall in the 2021 draft, and we saw him have a couple big games where he was playing on the outside and commanding significant targets. Had 13 targets in week 5 against Dallas, 9 targets week 4 against New Orleans. and 12 targets again against Tampa Bay in week 11 before missing most of the season with injury. So with Kadarius Toney, everyone was really excited down the stretch for him, especially when we saw those pop games, and it bumped his value up a bit. But now we're seeing that the reps are being limited. Brian Dable said on Thursday that Toney and Galladay are actually banged up right now. So I don't know if there's anything that we can kind of read between the lines with that, but it could mean that Wan'Dale Robinson could get an opportunity to jump up in that depth chart with these guys hurt, and we could see him play the outside X role. And I think that's where all the upside is with Wan'Dale Robinson, because he checks all the other boxes. There's no red flags in his profile, in his production. You mentioned the 39% target share, over 1,300 yards in the SEC in 13 games. He also, when playing for Nebraska as a true freshman in 2019, we saw 231 special teams yards. So this is an explosive, versatile weapon in Wan'Dale Robinson. The size probably caps him as an outside X receiver, but we could see him be utilized in some creative ways in this offense. And there's upside in the unknown in New York. Who knows a year from now what happens with the quarterback position with Daniel Jones. We saw New York take a rebuild approach in the draft, bringing in Evan Neal, bringing in Kayvon Thibodeau. So they're building the trenches on both ends of the ball in New York. I think we're probably a year away from seeing what that offense is going to look like long term, because they're going to turn some things over with Danny Dimes and the other pieces. So it's almost like, hey, do you like Elijah Moore? Did you like Rondale Moore coming out? Okay, well, here now you can take a dart throw a whole round later in these 2022 drafts and just take an upside shot on a guy that's a fun prospect, a productive prospect, and checks a lot of boxes other than being 5'8", 179.
Steph, one more thing about Wan'Dale, and another reason I like the upside, especially in his rookie season. I think Wan'Dale Robinson, this is kind of an odd take, I think they're going to use him significantly out of the backfield. I do. I think it's Saquon and no one right now. I think Matt Breida is the number 2. Not a lot of people know this. Wan'Dale Robinson, you mentioned the freshman season at Nebraska, had the kick return yards, the special teams ability. Wan'Dale Robinson had 88 carries for Nebraska in his freshman season. So Wan'Dale has been effective on the ground in the past, and you get these receivers. Even a guy like Robert Woods would add a couple carries a game, occasionally get a rushing touchdown, and might even get some receptions out of the backfield. Obviously, we saw what Debo did last year in San Francisco. Wan'Dale probably doesn't have the frame to take that kind of significant workload out of the backfield, but wouldn't be surprised if Wan'Dale is used around the formation. Maybe he's used in special teams. And maybe when Saquon does need a breather, we see Wan'Dale in the backfield getting screen passes, getting creative, getting good matchups against these linebackers, and maybe a few carries as well. So they didn't spend early second-round draft capital on him for nothing. Hopefully they learned their lesson last year, taking Kadarius Toney in the first round, and they didn't make the same mistake twice. Hopefully they know how to utilize Wan'Dale and plug him into this offense to be effective right off the bat.
The long-term career comps for guys at this size, 5'9", 183, T.Y. Hilton. Speedy receivers, John Brown is another one that fits in that profile. So these are the type of guys that we're looking at if we're trying to make these long-term comps for Wan'Dale Robinson.